Welcome to Fanalysis, where we take the analytics used in fantasy football combined with the analysis of betting trends. That's how you find the smart plays. And for more on that, we bring in a sports handicapper you can find on Twitter as the old man who bets, Geoff Sheasby. Let's look at the Sunday games, because I think the Sunday games are going to be really interesting. Cleveland is a 10-point dog right now to the Chiefs. Double-digit dogs this late in the playoffs feels scary. But Andy Reid rested KC starters in Week 17, so they haven't played in a couple of weeks. Will they be rested or rusty?
I think ready, rested, ready, and firing on all cylinders. I think the fun is over for the Browns here. Actually, a great quote, Patrick Mahomes this week, asking about Andy Reid's greatness after the bye week. And he said he's got a good feel for it. He understands how to make sure our heads are still in the game. We're still preparing for that next game, even though we don't necessarily know who we're playing. So they've been preparing, obviously, all for 2 weeks now. They took that week off. And Andy Reid, after a bye, there has to be some method to his madness, right? He's 5-2 in the playoffs after a first-round bye. He's 18-3 in the regular season. And Steve, last time I checked, that's pretty good. So let's go a little bit deeper here, right? We've got obviously the Browns coming off a 48-point outing. You know, huge points against divisional rival the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, I think there's a couple narratives here. One, fantastic effort from the Browns, sure. Two, the Steelers perhaps overrated. They open up 11-0 and they close out 1-4 to the season. That's interesting. Their strength of schedule was pretty weak. Maybe that win isn't as good as we think it is. Three, we've got the Browns who play the Steelers twice a year. There's a familiarity there that they know how to play each other. And you look at the Browns in conference, in division specifically over the last couple of years, they always show up to those games. We think back even last year when they throttled the Ravens 40-0 and, you know, lost to some of the worst teams in the league all within a 4-week stretch. That divisional aspect of it, I think, is super interesting. So we look under the hood here. Overall team efficiency, the Chiefs are at number 6. The Browns are at number 18. That, to me, is a huge delta that we should be exploding. Looking a little bit more under the hood in terms of offense and defense, this Chiefs ranks number 2 in offense, 22 on defense. The Browns are 9th on offense and 25th on defense. So there's letdowns on both sides of the ball for the Browns here. I think that's super interesting. I also think, going back to the game last week, one, public bias, recency bias. The Browns are here. The Browns have, lifted the curse. Fine. The Steelers also fumbled into the end zone for a touchdown on the first play of the game. And then, Big Ben threw 4 interceptions. Mahomes not going to throw 4 interceptions tomorrow. If he does, I'll eat my words. I'll bleach my hair. I'll do something crazy. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Wait. 4 interceptions by Mahomes, and you're going blonde?
I'll go blonde. That's fine. I'll go whatever color you want.
Eyebrows as well? Or
no eyebrows. The eyebrows stay. But nonetheless, I think that's super important, right? The Browns feasted off the mistakes that the Chiefs don't make. You go a little bit deeper here. Chiefs due to cover. They haven't covered in 7 games. And some historical trends that Captain Covers on Twitter helped me find this week. Home double-digit favorite off of a bye is 9-2 against the spread, 7-0 in their last 7, and a double-digit favorite since 2010 is 16-7 against the spread. So I'm buying this Chiefs team to finally get a cover here. They're the most due team in the league for a cover. They're well rested, which obviously hits all the Andy Reid historical trends as well. And there's just a huge delta in terms of overall team efficiency. Give me the Chiefs all day.
I get what you're saying here about the Chiefs against the spread, which it's amazing, as good as this team is, that they can't cover, at least in the past few weeks of the season. But I have a feeling that had a lot to do with Joe Public loving the Chiefs so much it started to balloon the lines. It seems like we're in that same spot once again. I mean, this is a double-digit spread against a playoff team. Does that scare you that Joe Public has moved that line like this?
It doesn't scare me too much, honestly. It's a big line, and we always say when there's strength, let's follow it. If it was a shorter line, I'd be a little more alarmed, right? I don't have the stats. Well, let's see here. Actually, Steve, hot off the presses, 46% of bets are currently on the spread for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're actually fading the public being on the Chiefs here.
Okay.
And the line opened at 9.5, is now sitting at 10. Will it get to 11? I hope not. I certainly don't. I see it at 10.5 plus 115 on Pinnacle as of right now on Thursday. So that's super interesting as well. I love this Browns team. It's hard for me to root against this Browns team. I think Baker is electric. I love Hollywood Higgins between Chubb and Hunt. This is an explosive squad with a pretty good defense, but I think it's a super strong line. I think the delta between their overall team efficiency plus just that Andy Reid stat, that historical spread trend, I think is a really a strong narrative for these Chiefs.
That's actually interesting that the public is fading the Chiefs right now. I mean, I'm actually kind of interested to see where you're landing on the over-under, because this over-under is a big one, 57.5. Does that inspire a play?
I mean, that is big, Steve, especially for the playoffs. But, I think it makes sense, right? Looking at these efficiency, number 2 and number 9 on offense, number 22 and 25 on defense. That screams shootout to me. If you remember when these two quarterbacks played in college, I believe it was the most yardage by two quarterbacks ever at something like 1,200 in the game. They put up over 80 points. Obviously, this is not Houston versus Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. But, these are two quarterbacks that could sling the rock. I lean towards the over there. A little concerning because 79% of the public is also on the over, which is ballooned the line from 55 to 57. But, playoff Sunday, two teams with high-powered offense, even from just an enjoyment point of view, betting that under, I think would be torturous. And I don't want to give myself that experience. So I'll follow the data on that one. I would lean over. I don't think I'll have a play on that total, but it is, I think, potentially even historically high for the playoffs. Uncharted waters. We'll see what happens.
Hey, man, you're always in the game if you bet the over. You're always in the game. You still got a shot. The Saints, 3-point home favorites against the Buccaneers. The Saints won both regular season matchups, so how do you see this new battle of legends that are playing in their twilight play out on the field?
Yeah, when this line came out, obviously taking a lot of things into consideration, I was surprised by how small it was. This is their third matchup, and quite frankly, the Bucs got blasted in both their first ones. So at only 3, I'm buying. It was 34 to 23 and 38 to 3. I thought the line would be 4.5, maybe 5. Especially when you think about the Saints bringing back Michael Thomas. They finally have their 3 stallions between Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and Drew Brees. And they're firing on all cylinders. They looked great last week. Looking under the hood here, essentially how I got to the Bucs, let's put some data behind just my hunch here. Overall efficiency, we've got the Saints at number 2. We've got the Bucs at number 3. When we look at, yards per play, both offensive and defensively, very, very similar. 5.7, 6.1, 5.0, 5.1. That's about a wash right there. In terms of points per play, very, very similar again. 0.449, 0.480 on offense. That's a standard deviation or a rounding error away from being the same.
That might as well be
equal. So, exactly. And I think that's the point here. When we're looking at equal, I want to take the points. I think it's a 50-50 shot. I think we're comboing the fact that, Brady has never lost to a team, I think, 3 times in his career in a season. Does that matter? Not really. Another factor that doesn't really matter, but if Brady wins this game, I believe he has something like a $1.25 million incentive in his contract. Of course, the guy's going to be motivated. Of course, that doesn't really matter. But, also interesting. I think at the end of the day here, one of the biggest, it just emerged, right? The Browns offense has been super, super inconsistent. But the Bucs offense has been inconsistent. But they also hadn't played with each other. These last 5 weeks, honestly, since getting blown out by the Saints, they've been putting up some big, big numbers. They've been playing bad defenses, sure. But nonetheless, Brady is consistently throwing for over 350 yards. He's 43. His arm is dead. I don't know about that. I think he looks great. So again, I think they found some rhythm here. I look for the Bucs at +3.
And real quick note here, Brady hasn't lost 3 times to the same team with Belichick as his head coach. It's a completely different animal this time around. But speaking of Brady, he was sacked 3 times last week against Washington. We expect the Saints to bring a lot of heat to Brady in this game.
Yeah, I think pressure on Brady is for sure a big concern. Brady under pressure this year ranks 20th in QB pressure in QB rating with a 4 touchdown to 5 interception ratio. That's not the Tom Brady we know and love. I mean, maybe it is. His critique has been under pressure all of his career, but nonetheless, he's finished 23rd in completion percentage under duress as well. You bring up a good point. Washington got to him. They sacked him 3 times. Brady was sacked 3 times, only 5 times this season. 2 of those games were against the Saints. He threw for 239 yards and 204 yards. Both abysmal efforts. But we look at a little more recency. Tom Brady under pressure. He was sacked 3 times since that slaughter against the Saints. once against the Falcons, where he threw for 390 yards. And more than 250 of those came in the second half. We talked about that inconsistent offense. They put it together for a half. They're going to need to obviously get it together for 4 quarters here. But he was also sacked 3 times against this Washington football team, who's got one of the best D-lines in the league. And what did he do? He threw for 381 yards. Perhaps Brady is finding some peace under pressure finally. I'm not sure, but I think at the end of the day, the stats are so similar. So I'm looking for the points. In terms of overall Tom Brady money incentives 3 times in a year, I think the overall narratives that are spinning around on the internet also favor the Bucs here. So even stats, a line that I'm perceiving as slightly weak compared to previous outcomes. I love the points. I love to back Tom Brady in the playoffs. Give me a +3.
Maybe at the age of 65 now, Tom Brady is starting to figure out these defenses. I love prop bets, by the way. So I've got to throw this prop bet out here to you, and I just want to get your reaction to it. Most points scored by a single team this weekend, 39.5. Which team would you go with to hit 39.5?
Yeah, that's a tough one there. If I'm picking a specific team, I think it has to be the Chiefs. It can't be the Packers going against the #1 defense and the Rams. I don't think it can be Buffalo or Baltimore. That total is at 49. We're not even in the 50s there. I think both the Tampa Bay and New Orleans have above average defenses as well. So I'm looking at the game with the highest total, of course, and 2 defenses that are in the bottom third of the league. That's going to be either Cleveland or Kansas City. I'm only going Kansas City here because I'm also backing them on -10. If the Browns were to score over 39.5 points, I feel like the Chiefs might have a hard time covering that. But you look at the Chiefs this year, they've gotten to 38 a couple times. They've been in the 30s for a handful of games. Where the total was over 50. They seem due off a bye. The narrative's there. And if Cleveland's scoring as well, they can't take their foot off the gas. So if any team was to do it, I think it's the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, Geoff, we are all just crossing our fingers that Pat Mahomes doesn't throw 4 interceptions because we don't want you to bleach your hair blonde this week. But we will find out. That's a look at how he sees the Sunday games. Make sure you check out his Saturday game previews as well in our other segment. For Geoff Sheasby, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.